good, YouTube? So today on the channel I'm going to be doing a little video about how I found out I was pregnant with my first child, Noah, up until he passed away. So as most of you know, it was around 2018 when I found out I was pregnant. But around in May, I had, been getting a little feeling that something was off because I haven't gotten my menstrual and my body was just changing. I just felt really tired and weak all the time. So I wait until the end of the month and I'm just like, okay, I still haven't got my menstrual. I'm like, okay, well now it's time to start worrying because I usually get it in the middle of the month. June 1st comes and I go and tell Keon, I'm like, well, Keon, I haven't taken a pregnancy test yet, but, I think I'm pregnant. And he's like, well, why do you think that? I'm like, I haven't gotten my menstrual, and I've been feeling very weird lately. Just a lot been going on with my body. And he's like, well, do you want to take a test? I'm like, sure, why not? And he goes to the store, he gets me some juice, and he gets 2 pregnancy tests. And I had to get ready for work that day, I remember. I was on my way to work. And I did the little pee on the stick. We had to wait a couple of minutes. So I got in the shower while we were waiting for the results. And as I'm in the shower, he's like, Yanni, you're pregnant. I'm like, no, like, you're lying. Like, he's like, no, I'm serious. So I open up the curtain and I seen 2 lines on both pregnancy tests. And I was just like, okay, like I immediately shut off the water. I didn't finish showering. I started crying and I was just so emotional. And he's like, well, why do you feel that way? I'm like, it's my first child. I'm only 17 and I was just getting my life together, back on track with school and everything. And it was very emotional for me. I remember my aunt being down the hall from me and she heard me crying and she's like, well, what's wrong? And I just gave her the pregnancy test and she's like, honey, you got something coming your way. But it was very hard for me. Being as though, like, because the doctors before a couple months ahead, they told me I wasn't allowed to conceive. Being as though like, my ovaries were a little messed up or it was something going on like that. So I had got off the birth control and I wasn't thinking that I would get pregnant. Then I, ended up getting pregnant. And everything was fine for the first couple months, the first 3 months. And then around, I could say, August, September, around that time, we went to the doctors and we did an ultrasound and they were telling me that they seen some thickness on the baby's neck. And that was abnormal for the baby, so we did Down syndrome testing. We did all the testing we can and nothing was coming back. Everything was coming back good. We did blood work, everything was good. And we were just wondering, like, maybe the baby's just fat already, So we wait and we go for another ultrasound and then we figure out that the baby has a cleft lip and a palate. We was able to see that on the ultrasound TV. We sat down with the specialist and she was like, maybe the baby's just, a lot of babies are born with this. It's not that serious. So we didn't take it, too serious because she told us everything was going to be okay But then as time started going on, as time started going on, we went over to Children's Hospital in Philadelphia because they were starting to see more things wrong with the baby. So we just went over to Children's Hospital in Philadelphia where they have a bunch of specialists and they have a very good NICU unit where Noah was. So we go there and we end up finding out the gender of the baby. Well, my mom found out. I didn't want to know. because we wanted to have a gender reveal. We wanted, everything to be like a normal pregnancy. So my mom, she throws me the gender reveal, and we found out that it was a boy. His name was going to be Adrian Amir. But towards the end of the pregnancy, of course, I changed his name. But one day we went in to Children's Hospital, and we seen that his heart was deformed. He only had he only had 3 chambers in his heart, and everyone knows we're supposed to have 4. We seen it was things wrong with like his spine, his kidneys were swollen, and it was just a lot. It was a lot. So it felt like a normal pregnancy to me. Like, he was growing like a normal baby. He was, like, I didn't really have too many complications with him. I wasn't really sick, but the only thing was I had to be on bed rest, and I had to stop going to school. It was a little hard, but as the time started going by, we were sitting down with all the specialists, and we met with a whole team over at Children's Hospital, which they were very great. I had a very good support system. Keon, my mom, my grandmother, they were always there for me at each and every appointment. And we would just sit there and we would listen. And the specialists, they seen a lot of things going on with him, but they didn't think too much of it. Like, they was just thinking that, maybe he would need, like, surgeries after he was born. And the first surgery was going to be with his heart. And then after his heart, it was going to be with, like, his kidneys and, like, his head. Because he was missing a part of the cerebellum, which is in the back of your head also. It was just a lot going on, with Noah. And then one day, let me see, which day was it? It was December 28th of 2018. And I was feeling, very sick. I wasn't feeling him move that entire day. And I text my mom, and I'm like, Mom, I think something's wrong. And she's like, well, call Children's Hospital, and they'll let you know if they want us to come up or not. And I called, and I explained everything that was going on. And the nurse was like, well, yeah, we need you to come in because it sounds like you're a little dehydrated, and we want to give you some fluids. Excuse me. So we go in, and we get started. We get signed in. They put me into the labor and delivery room where we're just in there. And it was me, my mom, Keon, my grandmother, and my mom's ex-boyfriend. And we were just all sitting there chilling, and they were like, oh yeah, well, you just look very dehydrated and you look very sick, so we're just gonna give you an IV, give you some fluids, and the ultrasound technicians are coming in the morning and make sure everything's going great with the baby. I'm like, okay. So my mom and everyone goes home. The only one that stays with me is Keon. And the next morning came around like 7 o'clock in the morning. It was very early, I remember. They came in, and she's like, well, we're here, to do an ultrasound. We're going to do it in bed. You don't have to get up. You don't have to move. And I'm like, okay. So they come in with the ultrasound machine, and they're sitting there checking. And I'm looking at her faces, and like, they weren't, happy faces. And I asked her, I'm like, what was wrong? And she's like, well, we're going to induce you today because your baby has no fluids. I'm like, well, what does that mean? He's like, well, your amniotic fluids inside the placenta is gone. Like, you have none at all, which means the baby could be suffocating. I'm like, okay, well, the first thing, Keon was awoke. The first thing he did was he grabbed his phone. He called my mom, his parents. He called my dad, and we told everyone that Noah was going to be born. Now imagine this was, December 29th. And I was in shock. Like I was scared. And the doctors, they were all coming in and they were talking with us, and they're just like, everything's gonna be okay, just stay relaxed, don't stress. But I wasn't allowed to eat, so I had to keep eating ice chips all day until later on that night, where they were like, okay, so we're gonna try to induce you tomorrow morning, so we're gonna let you eat tonight. I'm like, okay. So everyone gets there. My mom, her boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend, and my grandmother, they get there, and I get a little small meal that they brung me up, where it was a little cheesesteak and a side of fries, and I ate that. And like 5 minutes later, all the doctors came rushing in, and they're like, we need to take you into an emergency C-section right now. And I'm like, well, what's wrong? Like, why? I wasn't supposed to get induced until tomorrow. And they're like, well, the baby's heart rate is dropping by the second, so we need to go. And I was just so nervous. I started crying, and I was praying, and I'm like, God, please don't let anything happen to my baby. And I looked over to my mom, and I remember saying, Mom, if it comes down to it, if you have to choose between me and the baby, I want you to choose the baby. And she just started crying, and my dad was on the phone, and he started crying as well. We all started praying, and it was a very emotional night for us. So around 10 o'clock maybe it was, they came back, and they put my gown on, they put my hat on, gave me the oxygen mask, and they rolled me down into the operation room, to where I was still freaking out. My anxiety was up here, and the lady, she was very nice. She was holding me, like she was sitting there rubbing my back, and she's like, just stay calm. She's like, I want you to take one deep breath. I took a deep breath in, and I just felt a big pinch, and after that I went numb. They put me down on the table, and I was just laying there. I was very woozy, and I didn't feel anything. Like, the lady literally lifted my leg up behind my head, and it was just, I didn't feel anything. So after they opened me up, they brought my mom in, because, my mom and Keon decided that since it was my first C-section, my mom should be there with me. So my mom came into the room, and she sat there, and she's holding my hand, and we were just sitting there talking and laughing. And I started throwing up, because obviously I had just got finished eating, and it was nasty. It was nasty. But they made sure that I was comfortable the entire time. The anesthesiologist talked to me the entire time as well, to make sure I wasn't feeling any pain or anything. And we were just in there, and I felt a lot of pressure. Like, it felt like someone sat a ton of bricks on my chest. And as I was feeling that pressure, I hear the doctor say, he's here. And I just look over to my mom, and I'm like, is he breathing? She's like, yes, he's breathing. And she took a bunch of pictures, and they hurry up and they ran with him to the next room. They got him hooked up to all these machines. They got me all sewed up and got me all ready to go back to my room. And well, they put me back onto my regular bed, and they wheeled me back into the room, and he was born. He was born at 10:59 p.m. on December 29th, 2018. So I don't know, I felt, I don't know, it just felt weird, being as though that I was only 8 months. I had just turned 36 weeks the day I had him. So it was just like, knowing that he was here a month early, it kind of scared me, especially with everything that was going on with him. But the doctors made sure that I was very taken care of, and so was he. Made sure that he was very comfortable and he didn't feel a thing. They brung him into my room around 12 a.m., 1 a.m. It was sometime in the middle of the night. They brung him into the room, and I was just so, like, like, I was happy. I couldn't keep my eyes off of him. I was just sitting there looking, and everyone was sitting there taking pictures, and we were all smiling. Sorry. And they had to take him back to the NICU. Now, me, I couldn't wait to go to sleep because the next morning I had, the anesthesia and everything had weared off by then. I was ready to get up and get going to go see my kid, obviously. So I went to bed next morning. It was December 30th. Yeah, it was December 30th when I went to go see him for the very, first time in his room, in his little bed. He was inside a little incubator, and he was very comfortable. They had a little blue light on him because he was a little pale when he was born. He didn't very, have much color. And they had his eyes covered with a little bandage so the light wouldn't irritate his eyes or anything. It sucks seeing him that way, but I didn't really think too much to it. I was sat down with his doctors, and they were telling me that he was doing good, and they were gonna try to see, if he could breathe on his own, but they were still, gonna have the machine with him. And they sat in his room 24/7. They did not leave his side. They made sure that, if anything was going on, they would come to my room, or they would call my room and let me know, or they would call my doctors and let me know. And I was just there. I brought in the New Year's with him as well. So we fast forward to January 3rd, 2019. I had to go up with a meeting with the genetic testing team and his specialist. And when we went to go find out, they didn't seem too happy when they seen us. Sometimes when you go see a doctor and they greet you and they're like, how you doing today? Would you like to come in and have a seat? No. They didn't shake our hands. They didn't say anything to us. They were like, you might want to have a seat. In that moment, I felt fear. And I went in and I sat down, me, Keon, my mom, and my grandmother, and my dad, and his ex-wife, and we were just sitting there, and they were explaining everything to us, and they were telling us that he had trisomy 13, which means he was born with an extra chromosome. Everybody is born with 2 chromosomes. He was born with 3. And that one was more deadlier than Down syndrome. So I was just sitting there asking the doctors, I'm like, well, what does this mean? Does this mean, me thinking, I was just like, so do we get a surgery to get, him better? Or, because no parent wants to think of the worst, And they just looked up at me. They looked up at me and they told me, we're sorry, your son's not going to make it. And in that moment, I broke down. Keon ran out of the room. My mom, my dad, everyone, they were there. They were holding my back. We all started crying. And, I had to make one of the biggest decisions, an 18-year-old parent would have to make. And it was whether I wanted my son to suffer for the rest of his life or lay him down to rest. So I asked the doctors, how soon should we do it? Because I didn't want him to suffer, knowing that he was going to lose his eyesight. He wasn't going to be able to hear. He wasn't going to be able to taste. He wasn't going to be able to walk or function on his own. It was just a terrible thought. So I felt, I did what was best for him. And we all, we all had our families come over and see Noah. Before it was only 3 per visit, but being as though like with his situation going on, his doctors lifted that, and we had my side of the family and his side of the family come in, and they all came and visited him the entire weekend. And then June 6th, 2019 came. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for what was going to happen, but it had to be done. We went and we signed a bunch of papers. We sat with the doctors, and they unhooked him from all the machines. We just sat there. He was breathing on his own for 3 hours. 3 hours he was on his own. He was fine. He opened his eyes. We passed him around to Keon's side of the family, and then my uncles and my mom and the babies' aunt and uncles, which are my brothers, sisters, Keon's brothers and sisters. They all got to hold him. And then I was in and out the room because they turned off the monitor in the room, so I was in and out the room the entire time, just making sure his heart was still beating, because even though they took him off, like they turned the machine off in the room, they still had him hooked up onto the heart machine so they could see when it stopped beating. And we were sitting there. It was around 4 o'clock. Yeah, around like 4 o'clock when they unhooked them from all the machines. And at 7:59 p.m. the doctor came in, and she just looked at me. My dad walked in behind her, so I knew it was something wrong. And I was sitting there holding him, and like it was hard. The doctor came in, and she kneeled down in front of me, and she was like, "We don't see your heartbeat on the machine, so do you mind if I take a listen?" I'm like, "Sure, go ahead." And she listened, and it was nothing there. And I remember her saying time of death, 7:59 p.m. It broke me. And seeing my family cry and seeing Keon cry, it broke me down a lot. But I knew in that moment that Noah was in a better place, and he was an angel baby. I didn't have to worry about anything other than him being back with the person who created him. I mean, I can't lie, I did blame God for a lot after that. I kind of stopped believing, because I was just sitting there, and I'm like, a person like me don't deserve this. I didn't do anything wrong in my pregnancy. I was as healthy as I could be. I was always taking care, of my body and making sure I watched what I ate. So for Noah to be like that, it was very hard. But we were, okay, I guess. Knowing that he was in a better place. Ooh. So we started going around, to funerals and everything, and we finally found one. I was very skeptical because I didn't want them, because it was a lot of things going on, last year in 2019 with funeral homes keeping bodies, and I was very, skeptical about it. So, but January 16th, I believe it was the 16th. Yes, the 16th, we laid him down to rest. in Linwood, my family. You know, everyone was there to support me, and I sang a song that I sang to him my entire pregnancy. It was Mama's Hand by Queen Asia. Everybody knows that song. And I just remember I couldn't even get halfway through the song. Like, I just broke down, and I was a mess. Like, it was terrible. But I really do, you know, want to thank all the people who was there for me and who is still here for me to this day. You know, supporting me and making sure that I'm not falling, because I am pregnant with my second child, which is a girl. It's been a very rough journey for me, but I've been holding on better than, you know, I thought I would. I didn't really think I was gonna make it after losing him, but I had a very good support system. You know, Noah's godmother and his godfather, my mom, my dad, my family, and then Keon's family. They were always checking up on us and making sure we were okay. And we were distant for a while, but we finally got out of that, and, you know, we're better. And we miss him a lot. You know, don't get me wrong. We miss him a lot, but we are we are happy that we are pregnant again with our second child. Well, with my second child. This would be Keon's third. She's healthy, thank God, you know. But yep, I'm sorry. It was just very, you know, hard for me to explain that story, because I haven't really talked to anyone about it since it happened. But I want to thank you guys for watching, and, you know, thank you for supporting, and make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell as well, so that way you'll be able to get all of our videos, because we will be dropping more bangers. Now, I think I want about 200 subscribers before we drop our next banger.